The views and opinions expressed by Howard and Ridley through Reclaim the Room, including the podcast, blog, and social media, are solely our own and do not reflect the views or policies of any employer or organization. Content is provided for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, medical, or psychological advice. Copyright Reclaim the Room, all rights reserved.
What if the word we keep using to describe what's happening to teachers is actually hiding the real problem? What if calling it burnout has quietly shifted the responsibility back on the educators rather than the conditions they've been navigating?
And what if the reason rest doesn't fix it is that we've been naming it wrong all along? In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the B word. Grab your coffee, earbuds, and whatever else you need and get comfortable, because this episode will make you rethink how you use the phrase burnout.
And today, we want to slow down around the word that has become almost automatic in education. It's the word people reach for when they're trying to explain how they feel, when they're trying to survive another year, or when they're trying to decide whether they can stay. The word is burnout.
And before anybody braces themselves, this is not a rant. This is not an attack on teachers, and it's not even an attack on the word itself. The episode that we're doing today is for clarification, a correction, if you will, a slowing down of the conversation. We're not reteaching trauma here. If you've been with us for a while, you already understand secondary traumatic stress, chronic exposure, and what that does to the nervous system. What we're doing today is correcting the public narrative, not just for teachers, but for administrators, families, policymakers, and anyone still asking, why are so many educators leaving?
Burnout became the default because it's simple. It gives people one word to explain something that is actually layered, emotional, relational, and long-term. And it doesn't scare people. When you say burnout, most people nod, especially teachers. We all agree on that one word. It sounds like fatigue, not injury. It sounds like you've just been working too hard for too long. And language matters because language shapes the kinds of solutions people are willing to consider. Burnout fits neatly into productivity culture. If the problem is overwork, then solution is rest. Take a break, recharge, step away, come back refreshed. That logic works in jobs where stress is episodic. It does not work in professions built on continuous emotional exposure.
And teaching is precisely that kind of profession. It's not just cognitively demanding, it's emotionally immersive. You are surrounded by other people's nervous systems all day long. You're managing behavior, crisis, trauma, disclosure, fear, dysregulation, and instability, often without a break. Burnout language smooths all of that down, and it makes the problem sound like a workload instead of exposure. And systems tend to like that kind of framing because if burnout is the issue, the system doesn't have to change. Individuals do. That's why the solutions offered are often individual. Self-care, mindfulness, resilience, better boundaries. None of those things are bad, but research on burnout itself has been detailed for years, as it was never designed to explain chronic emotional exposure. It was intended to explain job stress, not what happens when caring itself becomes the source of strain.
This is where burnout language quietly starts to cause harm, not because teachers are wrong for using it, but because of what it implies. When burnout becomes the explanation, responsibility subtly shifts back onto the teacher. The message becomes, if you're burned out, you're not managing yourself well enough. That message shows up everywhere. In PD sessions about teacher wellness, in emails reminding staff to take care of themselves, but also in articles telling educators to leave work at work. Yeah. And when those strategies don't work, the research shows that for exposure based on stress, they often don't. The conclusion usually isn't the framework is flawed.
The conclusion becomes Something must be wrong with me. And Howard, right here, you and I both couldn't get through that last section without like giggling because how often do we get those kind of emails?
Exactly.
Every time there's a
Exactly.
break.
Make sure you rest and rejuvenate over the break.
Yes,
Leave
yes.
work at work.
Don't worry about this place while you're gone. Don't check your
Exactly.
emails while you're gone.
Exactly. Don't check your emails. That oh my goodness. All of those things. And you would think that being an educator would tell them this doesn't work.
Right.
But they repeat the same thing over and over again. And I think that's a really, really misjudged part of what they mismanage that. Because if they were on there, if they sent us an email or said to us, you can we have these sessions available that teach you how to cope with the underlying trauma, because it doesn't have to be this big event
Right.
that causes the trauma.
No, that's
Seeing
it.
a fight
Yeah.
every day
Yeah.
causes trauma,
Hmm.
especially when you have to jump in.
Yeah.
So being talked down to causes trauma.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think, yeah, sorry, we
And
got off a tangent.
but this really, I mean, this is the part I think that is really important for people to understand. And how many times have you had that long break? You read the email, it was meant to be encouraging and they sent it with a good intention. Their heart was in the right place, but then at the end of this long weekend or your Christmas
Yeah,
break or your spring break, you go back to work and you're like, why am I still so tired? Why am I still so worn out? I didn't check my email. I didn't worry about this place. I focused on my family, but I don't feel like I've even left
yeah,
over the last
yeah,
week or so. And so we've actually been conditioned to buy into that and to accept that we did something incorrectly. Not necessarily wrong, but maybe not the right way. That's
exactly.
that's what I used to think. Like everyone else seems to be just fine. Here I am dragging my feet because I just can't make
Exactly.
it. Paste on the
And
smile.
that's us putting that on ourselves even more,
Mm-hmm.
because that starts you to feeling, well, maybe I'm just burnout. You know,
Yeah,
maybe I'm just burnout and I just need to just push through
right.
and get to summer, and after summer break everything will be okay.
Everything will be okay because I'll have, the whole, well, not really the whole summer. It's like two
Right.
months. Yeah.
Exactly.
And in that 2 months, you have to do your professional development so you can get all your hours. But
Yep. 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 Yep.
but yeah, it's like, why is it not working for me? So that last thing I said, there must be something wrong with
Wrong.
me. I did it wrong. And Howard, I've read teacher blogs where people describe feeling ashamed that summer break didn't restore them.
Yes.
They waited to feel better, instead felt anxious and numb and
Right.
detached. And one teacher wrote that she thought she was doing rest wrong. It wasn't until later when she encountered some research on secondary traumatic stress that she realized her nervous system never had a chance to come down fully. And I've also read some posts where teachers worried that they were becoming cold or uncaring. They thought burnout meant that they were losing their empathy. And when they found the research on compassion fatigue and realized something important, they hadn't lost empathy, they'd spent it.
Yep. Yeah.
Burnout frames that as weakness.
As weakness.
Yeah, trauma
As weakness.
frames it as a cost because you spend your emotions.
Right. And that's important for us to deal with, because we don't realize we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize it.
Exactly.
And even when you're going through the school year or whatever and you decide, okay, I'm gonna leave work at work. Just because you don't carry a lesson planner home
Mm-hmm.
or your laptop home
Mm-hmm.
or whatever doesn't mean you're leaving it at work.
Mm-mm.
You also experience the empathy that we think we've lost. You're still being that empath. You're still taking on the problems of your students. You're still worried about, are they eating? Are they taken care of? Because you know what their home situation is like, but you can't do anything about that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we think about that. Because my husband used to tell me all the time, you've got to turn it off. You can't. And I don't think it's healthy to just turn it off, because I think that that's like compartmentalizing things that you go through and not deal with, and then you
Uh-huh.
end up where I am.
And where I was, yeah, you can compartmentalize only so much,
Only so much.
and
Only so
after a
much.
while, those compartments, they get full, and then what?
Exactly. What do you do then?
Yeah,
What do you do then? Because it's coming. You've got to deal with it. You've really got to deal with it and understand what's going on.
yeah,
And when you get that understanding that it's not burnout, it's trauma, then you can work through it. But with burnout, there's really nothing you can do about it. You can push through, but you're not dealing with what you're actually experiencing, what
yeah,
you're feeling.
yeah,
So you just have to make sure that you're treating the right illness or experience, or you're treating the
right,
right thing, in
right.
other words.
You're not mislabeling it, because when
Right.
you mislabel it, then you're not going to do the right things to help yourself. That's what that means.
What's striking is how closely teacher writing mirrors what research has been saying for decades. Long before education started using the word burnout so casually, researchers were studying secondary traumatic stress in helping professions, people who absorb the pain of others as part of their job. We're empaths. That's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the research, the symptoms line up almost perfectly with what teachers describe in blogs, interviews: hypervigilance, difficulty sleeping, irritability, emotional numbing, and trouble concentrating. I'm there. Teachers don't say I'm experiencing hypervigilance. They say I'm always on the edge, fight or flight. I say that a lot because that's what I feel like. Or I can't relax even at home. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
They don't say I'm emotionally numb. They say I feel flat or I don't feel like myself anymore. And really, I said that
mm,
to you, as you did to me when we were, both at the various stages of what we're going through.
yeah,
So I understand that the terminology, the verbiage, the language that we're using for it has to change in order for us to actually
yes.
be able to help ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where the research on secondary traumatic stress makes something very obvious. Stress
Hmm.
that comes from exposure does not resolve with rest alone. I'm going to repeat this for the people in the back real
People in the
quick.
back. People in the back.
Stress that comes from exposure does not resolve with rest alone. Multiple studies on school personnel show that while time off helps with exhaustion, it does not undo the nervous system adaptations created by chronic exposures. That's why breaks don't fix it. That's why long weekends don't fix it. That's why summers don't always fix it. Because over time, the nervous system learns something very specific. I am not safe to fully power down. And burnout language doesn't capture that. Trauma-aware language does.
Teacher blogs are some of the most honest spaces in education because people write there what they can't say in faculty meetings. And I'm like with you, really. I read tons of them.
Mm-hmm.
I read posts from teachers who grieve who they used to be, me,
Huh?
not the job, but themselves. We think it's something wrong with us.
Mm-hmm.
I've read essays by educators who didn't realize how much emotional labor they were carrying until they stopped carrying it and then felt the crash.
Yeah.
The delayed crash is something trauma researchers had documented repeatedly in giving caregivers and helping professionals.
So talking about, the other professions out there that deal a lot with this secondary traumatic stress, is they actually have within their profession something built in that gives them opportunity to release all of that so they can power down. It's built in, part of their SOP, if you will, part
Right.
of their standard operating procedures, not in education. And there was a piece on the Naroga Educators blog that described vicarious trauma in teachers, but what stood out wasn't the terminology. It was the description of never fully shutting off, even outside of work.
Wow.
And in NEA today, teachers talk about compassion fatigue not as a lack of care, but as a cost of caring in systems that don't allow for recovery. That language mirrors what the research literature has been saying for years. Teachers aren't saying, I don't care anymore. They're saying, I don't have anything left to give. How many
Exactly.
times have we heard that?
Exactly.
Have we said that?
And for someone that has done this and really cares about those children, then this becomes really hard because we're blaming ourselves again.
Yeah.
We're talking about, how hard it is for us to give.
Right.
But like you said, really, we just don't have any more to give. And we want to.
Right.
We just can't.
Yeah.
We just can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is this me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If this conversation resonates with you, we would like to pause for just a moment and ask for your help in keeping it going.
If you're watching on YouTube, please like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear it.
And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show. Ratings, reviews, and shares make a bigger difference than people realize, helping these conversations reach educators who don't yet have the language for what they're experiencing.
All right, so let's get back into it.
Alrighty.
We have to add our own little commercial here, trying to build up, right?
We're trying to build and share it, guys, share it.
Please. Yeah. So when we shift from burnout language to trauma-aware language, the entire conversation changes. So instead of asking, what's wrong with this teacher? We ask, what has this teacher been exposed to over time? Instead of defaulting to individual fixes, we start talking about systems, environments, and expectations. And instead of shame, we get context. There was one teacher that wrote that burnout made her feel like she was failing, while trauma language helped her understand that her reactions were reasonable responses to unreasonable conditions. And that reframing recurs in both educator narratives and trauma research.
That's so important. That's so important to say, because one of the things that I feel still most is guilt.
Yes.
And I even feel guilt as in saying that I resigned from teaching, because the guilt comes from me not those students that I built these relationships with, that I became their safe place. Who do they have? And that's very hard for us to deal with.
Yeah.
That reframing doesn't excuse harm. It doesn't lower standards. It restores dignity. It lets teachers stop blaming themselves for responses their bodies learn to survive.
Yeah, exactly. And this part matters because naming trauma doesn't mean that teachers are powerless, but it does mean that we have to be honest about what hasn't worked.
Right.
Surface level fixes do not work. Motivational posters don't work. Toxic positivity doesn't work. Being told to just set boundaries, and I'm guilty of that. You do need boundaries, but there's some boundaries that you can't just set. You can't turn things off like that. But in systems that punish boundaries doesn't reduce stress. Let me backtrack.
Huh? Go ahead.
Yeah. Toxic positivity doesn't work. Being told to just set boundaries in systems that punish boundaries doesn't reduce stress, it increases it. And I've been guilty of saying, you got to set your boundaries. You do need boundaries, but there's some things that boundaries aren't going to help.
No, we can't tell that kid, hey, I can't listen to your problems.
Right.
Today.
Yeah, I've had my quota.
Right.
You're going to have to take a number, okay? No. Yeah, and I don't mean to make light of it, but again, that is also a coping strategy to deal with, what we hear and stuff. But here's the thing. What has helped consistently starts with understanding what's happening to your actual body. Teachers who learn about nervous system responses often describe immediate relief, not because the stress disappears, but because the self-blame does. Once you learn how to do that, once you learn how to stop blaming yourself, it does relieve a lot of stress.
Yeah, because it's not your fault.
Right.
It's nothing you did.
Right.
Honest peer connection helps. not forced positivity, not we're all in this together slogans, not those same old slogans. Honest conversations with people who understand the work. Predictability matters, routines matter,
Yes.
actual breaks matter, trauma informed support matters.
Yes.
Therapy, coaching, or consultation with professionals who understand chronic exposure, not just general stress.
Yes.
Teachers who sustain longer also talk about learning to listen to early warning signs, irritability, numbness, and constant vigilance.
Yes.
Those aren't failures, they're signals. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about protecting yourself while continuing to advocate, for conditions that don't require constant harm.
Yeah. This episode was never about banning the word burnout. Burnout describes exhaustion, and exhaustion is absolute. Teachers are tired in ways that deserve to be taken seriously. What we're saying is that burnout doesn't tell the whole story. It explains fatigue, not injury. It doesn't explain why rest alone doesn't always help, or why so many educators feel on edge even after stepping away.
That's me again. Okay.
When we correct the language, we don't weaken teachers. We actually do the opposite. We give context to what their bodies and minds have been responding to for years. We shift the conversation away from personal failure and toward understanding what sustained exposure does to people who care deeply. And that matters because naming the right problem is the first step toward real solutions. Not quick fixes, not platitudes, but support that actually matches the reality of the work.
Before we wrap up, I need you guys to understand that we both been there. We both been there, which is why we feel so strongly about this content. I'm struggling more right now than Ridley. She's helping me to get through mine. But we also just understand that it's not burnout. It's not that you're just tired and you don't feel like doing it. It's some of it. Some of it may be burnout for you, but trauma. We just really have to focus in on that because the language using the word burnout does not describe what you're going through, and it does not help find a solution to your problem or a strategy to cope with it because it may not go all the way. It may, I don't know. But when it happens, we need to learn how to cope with because when you don't, then you end up crashing.
Right. And here's the thing. You resigned from teaching.
Yes.
So if it were burnout, you should be better now.
Yes.
And instead, it took a while after you resigned and it hit you pretty hard because we were doing all this research. I fully believe that once we started doing this research, things started to click for you. And you started to really analyze what was going on in your mind and you stopped ignoring.
I started to understand.
Yeah.
What's going on.
Right.
I started to see the signs that I missed. I started to work toward a solution.
Yeah.
Get the actual help that I needed. And, we often shy away from therapy, but that's one of the most helpful things for me right now is the therapy. Getting to say it, getting it out of my head, learning how to cope when I feel like I don't want to move. Learning how to, just do things that'll help me to center myself again. Because when you're in the thick of it, it just feels like you have no control of anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
I do think that framing that in the right way would be much better than suffering in silence doesn't help. That doesn't help at all. Because number one, people see the changes in you that you don't think you're expressing.
Yeah.
They see those changes. And even with my children and my husband, they're like, you're biting off everybody's head every time they come close to you. I didn't realize it.
Right. Yeah.
So finally, my husband was like, look, you just can't be cussing me out every time I walk in the door. So you mad at me for breathing? And I was like, no, I'm really not mad. But I didn't see it. I didn't feel the agitation that I was actually experiencing, but they did. So I
Hmm.
think it's important to talk to those around you. Ask them, if they're noticing any changes. Ask them if you're spending more time in bed than normal. Because you really don't. I could actually sit in bed for hours and not realize I hadn't moved in hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, like if one person comes up to you and says, I notice you're a little off, and they're the only person that says that, maybe it's a them problem, not a you problem. If two people come up and say, hey, I notice you're a little off, I might think, that's two people that have said that to me in a very short time span. I wonder what's going on. If three people or more come up and tell you, I think you're a little off, it's time to take that seriously and find out what is going on. So, yeah, don't ignore what people tell you. They mean it well. They mean well. Don't bite their head off all the way. Just a nibble.
That's important to say because they do mean well.
Hmm.
However,
Yeah. You're not in that frame of mind to accept it
to
that way.
accept it, to
Hmm.
accept it.
Yeah.
And sometimes what they're going to tell you are those same phrases that we were talking about earlier. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Just get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that honestly made me so angry
Oh, yeah.
to hear that. Oh my goodness.
That brings out the fight. Like, that brings out
Exactly.
total fight right there.
Or they're saying you're being lazy. That's another.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, if I had the strength, I would
Yeah.
get up and just do whatever it is that you think I should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason I'm not moving.
Brushing your teeth takes an extraordinary amount of energy. It does.
I agree.
And some days, you got to really fight to get that done.
You do. You absolutely do.
Yeah. I get it.
Absolutely do.
And those of you listening, if you have not gone through this, be thankful, but understand that it's different for everybody, but in a way it's the same. It's the same in that the struggle, you're going to struggle like different things, but the struggle is still there. You're going to struggle for everyday things. For the people that are listening that have no idea what this is like, that maybe you know someone that's going through this,
yeah.
This is your chance to ask them and be ready for their answer because it's probably not going to be very nice. What do you need from me? What can I do to help you? Because right now you are being a bloop, Yeah. When they say just leave me alone, don't listen to them and ask again.
No. And my therapist, she told me that sometimes when you're going through this and you feel like you're in that dark hole, sometimes you just want somebody to just sit there with you. It's not that you have to say anything or do anything, but just sit there. And that lets them know that, hey, you're in a dark place right now, but you're not alone. You're not alone. She says that sometimes they think that they can just reach in that hole and yank you out of it and everything's going to be okay. And now sometimes they break your neck when they pull you out,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very important to be cognizant of people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see someone that's really sad, like she said, just say, hey, how are you? You want to talk? You need someone to talk to? If not, we can just sit here.
Yeah. 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 And I like how you said they try to reach down into the hole and pull you out. That hole follows you.
Yes.
It's attached. Like you're not just sitting in it. Like it is attached and you can't shake it. If you could shake it, you would.
Your hole goes everywhere you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, we have enjoyed talking to you guys. Thank you for spending time with us.
Yes. And thank you for helping us to reclaim the room. So until next week.
Bye, guys.
Reclaim the Room credits, otherwise known as Teacher Duties as Assigned. Bus Duty, Howard. Hallway Duty, Ridley. Cafeteria Duty, Howard. Recess Duty, Ridley. Field Trip Coordinator, Howard. After School Tutoring, Ridley. Required attendance for Howard and Ridley. Staff meetings, PLC, and every single one of those committees.